But let me tell you something, okay? Because there's a lot of pork in Washington, and there's a lot of money malplacements. You see the whole Act Blue thing going on right now. But let me tell you where there's some financial misappropriations as well. Because Federal Drug Agency awards $2.9 million to study and improve cannabis warning labels to communicate risks of use. You guys, that's right. It's fucking insane that they're putting just about $3 million into investigating labels, you guys. The National Institute on Drug Abuse, NIDA, has awarded researchers a $2.9 million grant to study how to improve the efficacy of cannabis warning labels, a project that will involve interviews with state marijuana regulators and online experiments designed to develop and implement, in quotes, more effective warning labels that inform people about the risks associated with cannabis use. The study will analyze current warning regulations and test different warning characteristics on newly developed cannabis warning labels to see which warning characteristics are most effective in communicating the harms of cannabis use, says a press release about the federally funded project from the UNC Health. Where the researchers are based, the research team will work with state regulators to ensure the newly developed cannabis warnings address current issues and challenges facing state regulators. Warnings developed through the investigation will be shared with marijuana regulators at the state level and to contribute to evidence on the impact of state policies on cannabis use, they say, the release adds. And they also say, which is a priority for NIDA. I bet it is. The project is jointly led by co-principal investigators Leah Rainey, a UNC Medical School research professor and director of the University of North Carolina's Tobacco Prevention and Evaluation Program, and Sarah Cowett, a professor of family medicine at UNC's medical school. In a quote, with the increase in state legalization for cannabis products and the rise in cannabis use among young adults and adults, we recognize the need to balance information on cannabis benefits that are widely advertised with the potential for harm via warnings, Rainey told Marijuana Moment in an email. In an additional quote, our experience and expertise in tobacco product warnings perfectly position us to develop clear and effective cannabis product warnings. Yeah, because everyone reads the package of cigarettes and says, oh, no, I don't want to smoke this because the warning label. Let's get the hell out of here. The study, she added, is focused on measuring how well warnings educate consumers about possible harms, not whether warnings influence their behavior. Well, that's a way to get around you not actually doing your job. But in another quote, our study aims to develop effective cannabis warnings that inform consumers about the potential risks of cannabis use, Rainey said. To accomplish this goal, we must identify which warning characteristics capture attention and are easily recalled. Cowett said in a statement that the study is a first of its kind on cannabis warnings, and in a quote, throughout the 5 years of grants, we will examine how states have implemented regulations on warnings for cannabis packages, experimentally develop a set of evidence-based cannabis warnings, and examine whether larger evidence-based warnings outperform existing warnings on product packages, he said. These findings will be very useful to state regulators who have been tasked with setting their own regulations for cannabis warnings, often without a rigorous evidence base, they say. Other members of the research team include public health specialist Kristen Jarman of UNC Family Medicine and lawyer Rachel Callahan of the Public Health Law Center. Gilligan Schreier, executive director of the Cannabis Regulatory Association, CANRA, and epidemiologist Julia Dilley of the Oregon Health Authority. The study is needed, the UNC Health releases says, because current cannabis warning labels are small, difficult to read, and hard to understand. Well, they have to fit on very small boxes, and that's the typeset is what the state says that font has to be. So why are you guys complaining about that? But whatever. In an additional quote, cannabis is the third most commonly used substance in the U.S., with almost half of adults admitting to trying it, it says. It can cause physical harm like chronic bronchitis, cognitive impairment such as memory loss, and other types of risks, including car crashes. Despite these harms, many people don't know or understand the risks. I think they do pretty well, hell, but whatever. Early last year, the National Transportation Safety Board, the NTSB, urged states where marijuana is legal to include warning labels on cannabis products that caution against driving under the influence. Nothing that federal prohibition is a barrier to nationalizing such consumer education to mitigate public safety risks. The board recognized at the time that several legal states already require such labeling, but others don't. Because marijuana remains federally prohibited, there is no federal requirement for labeling cannabis, the NTSB said. As such, the body didn't propose a federal labeling requirement, instead saying that the states should take lessons from other states and Canada, where cannabis is legal nationwide, to develop warning labels that explicitly discourage impaired driving. Meanwhile, there is a standardized warning label for alcohol in the United States that's mandated under a federal law enacted in 1988, the report notes, and while evidence suggests that alcohol labeling had little effect on behavior change, some authorities have suggested that even small effects can be meaningful in a product that is widely used. That's basically saying that they know that their warnings don't do anything, but they're still trying to say that they do something. Right. Yeah. In an additional quote, a recent study found that among the 31 U.S. states with medical cannabis programs, all have some labeling requirements, and 26 have some requirement for labeling concerning impairment, but not necessarily driving impairment, the Transportation Board said. On a obstacle to labeling is ongoing confusion over what precisely the impacts and risks of cannabis might be. A Congressional Research Service report from 2019 found that while marijuana consumption can affect a person's response times and motor performance, studies of the impacts of marijuana consumption on a driver's risk of being involved in a crash have produced conflicting results, with some studies finding little or no increased risk of a car crash from marijuana usage. Another study that was published in 2022 found that smoking CBD-rich marijuana had no significant impact on driving ability, and despite the fact that all study participants exceeded the per se limit for THC in their blood. Asked about the shifting scientific views on cannabis and how that might affect the warning label project, Rainey said that the work acknowledges that the science on the health effects of cannabis is still evolving. Exactly. That's why you guys need $2 million to waste. And we will use the best science available when developing the warning content, she wrote. Our researchers will study. Our research study will be funded for 5 years, and we expect the science of cannabis health effects to advance as we develop these warnings. In August of last year, meanwhile, a coalition of marijuana reform organizations called upon regulators across the world to adopt a universal symbol for marijuana products in the interest of promoting safety in the evolving cannabis market and making it easier to facilitate interstate commerce if states choose to enact that policy. States don't get to enact that policy. That's not how it works, but okay. The groups said in a letter to regulators that there should be at least be uniformity in labeling so that people know what products contain cannabis no matter where they're shopping. The International Intoxicating Cannabinoid Product Symbols, the ICPS, a yellow triangle with an image of a cannabis leaf and black border, has already been adopted by Montana, New Jersey, South Dakota, Vermont, while other states like Alaska are also considering it. And Doctors for Cannabis Regulation, the DFCR, which played a leading role in developing the symbol and is spearheading the campaign for its universal adoption, said in a press release at the time its goal was communicating a simple public health message, which is caution with cannabis. Oh. Yes, exactly. David Nathan, founder and president of the DFCR, also criticized New York regulators in an op-ed for Marijuana Moment after the state moved forward with a more complex, individualized label for cannabis products, despite being encouraged to follow the lead of other states and adopt the universal symbol and the universal caution symbol, which it was also developed in partnership with the standards organization ASTM International and internationally omitted omits letters, words, or numbers to avoid language barriers, which would be specifically important if it is used internationally. There would be space under the label on marijuana products with different jurisdictions, could include additional text-based information if that fits their needs. And David Valancourt, vice chair of ASTM International Committee D37, said at the time the ASTM has long worked with the National Conference on Weights and Measures, the NCWM, which had recently adopted national standards for cannabis packaging, labeling, and storage. NCWM considered adopting guidance calling for a universal label on cannabis products, but earlier this year opted to forego that plan because members were concerned that the body, which focuses primarily on scientific measurement, lacked the necessary health expertise to craft an appropriate label. A representative told Marijuana Moment earlier this month, that the NCWM labeling proposal is, in quotes, permanently dead. Man.
I made it a lot farther through this story than I thought I was going to without rolling my eyes, considering how long it was.
Oh, good job.
This is a really good story.
The cigarette guy's in charge.
They could have summed this up with, it's not going to work, they're not going to read it, but may we please have this government contract and funding anyway?
Yeah, just like
exactly.
So stupid.
It's like there's a couple things. So actually, as a voting member of ASTM D37, Hashfight, is on the review board for a lot of these white papers and a lot of these papers. It's a peer-to-peer system. Mm-hmm. It's not like there's an organized body that's in charge of this and those people. This is kind of like Wikipedia style. Other people that have knowledge or are subject matter experts in many different fields kind of coalesce into that group. They make decisions based on what's coming up. So, the most recently there was like a white paper on a standard method on how to run the Orange Photonics light lab system. So that's the kind of stuff that comes across the body. But it's not just that, it's all kinds of stuff. So like, as they were saying, there's not the right group of people or not the right subject matter experts potentially in health and safety on these boards. That's definitely potential. But the bottom line is the health and safety aspect of our society versus, what everyone had just echoed here. Nobody freaking reads this stuff. No one cares. It's literally printed on the front door of In-N-Out, but that doesn't stop the millions of people going in and out every single day. Mm-hmm. And it won't stop that. So people are going to do what they want. No one cares until it's too late. So what are you going to do?
I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to get a little comment in and out real quick on this story and tell y'all what I think. And so, see, what the thing is, and this is like, to me, I always think about these long stories. I love hearing Jason's voice, the deep baritone, but I always try to think about what is the most important thing in the article for me as I'm reading it. And so I think, for me, this summarizes it, and I also think that at the end of the day, we're talking about $2.9 million, so y'all can figure out to increase the font size. That's a lot of money. And Saman, that standards group that you're part of is not like Wikipedia, because Wikipedia crowdsources its information, and all of the people who are part of that process, including yourself, may not be quote unquote scientifically PhDs, but you guys are subject matter experts. There's a reason why you guys are on that body and adding your perspective. And so one thing,
peer-to-peer is what I meant, but yeah, you're right.
But those peers are not just random whoever's. Those are peers who have a perspective that is contributing to furthering this conversation around standards. So here's the part I just want.
I'm kind of a random mother effer. You know what I'm saying?
Well, I mean, that may be what we say behind your back, but public facing, you're pretty qualified.
We usually call him a mother effer when we're waiting on him to roll a blunt.
Yeah. So here's the part that I think is the most important part of the article for the viewer. It says, meanwhile, there's a standardized warning label for alcohol in the U.S. that's been mandated under federal law enacted in 1988. The report notes. Okay, so alcohol has been in this society for over 100 years. Cars have been around since the early 1920s, and it took them 50 years to figure out that they might want to say, hey, drinking and driving don't entirely work well together. The other thing, and this is the next sentence in the article, is the most important sentence in the article, because we know that the alcohol model has been a template for regulated cannabis. So listen up, viewers. The next sentence says, and while evidence suggests that alcohol labeling had little effect on behavioral change, some authors have suggested that even small effects can be meaningful if the product is widely used. So what they're saying in this article is that it took the government 50 years after driving was a thing to put a label on alcohol, and that there is no evidence that this article or the author can point to suggest that that labeling has had a more than a little effect on behavioral change.
I mean,
so if that's the case, why would we spend $2.9 million to have a bunch of people sit around a room, pick their noses, and then figure out that maybe they want the font size to be a little bigger?
I totally agree with you on all of that, Yarrow. And I think we can take a page out of Europe and the tobacco industry, because they have probably the most comprehensive warnings that they have on cigarette packages, where they actually show like lungs with lung cancer and things like this, of saying, hey,
babies,
this
nasty coochies. They have some really
all of that.
vile shit.
Not the nasty coochie. No.
On the packages.
The nasty coochie.
Define what makes it nasty.
It's
You know what I'm
gross
saying?
and just
you don't yuck
falsely
anybody
advertising.
else's yum.
How many people have stopped smoking?
I'm all for the European
One man's
style.
trash is another man's.
No, but hold on, guys. My point is,
style wordings.
hold on.
We should have pictures of stoners just doing stoner shit like as the warning label.
Just have a picture
No.
of a grocery bill.
The point of this whole thing, though, is that none of those labels stop anyone from smoking. You have crazy high numbers of Europeans that smoke on a regular basis and are crazy chain smokers. Okay, even most of them don't even smoke pures, which is just straight cannabis. They mix their cannabis with tobacco on top of it all. So none of these labeling system works for people. We've already proven that.
Proven. Even with the ugly coochie pictures.
Exactly.
Hey, can we clip that? Can we please clip that? Todd Denkin saying, even with the ugly coochie pictures.
What were you saying, Jenny?
I'm saying I think that one is the easiest to dispel. If you're a girl that smokes cigarettes, you can quite easily identify that was a dramatization, and probably there were some other issues going on than cigarettes. But I think,
You think so?
Yeah, labels don't work. Labels don't work. It's fine. The one that says that you shouldn't drink alcohol when you're pregnant, oh, no shit. But there was a whole generation that had 2 glasses of scotch before dinner, 8 months pregnant, and the babies came out just like Yarrow.
My mom delivered me a very long time ago. The doctor gave her a cigarette to relax. As she's in labor. So they are changing.
I was born in a cigarette factory.
Both my parents smoked inside for a large part of my childhood, and I'm just
I mean, you remember when our parents used to ride around in the cars tacking out cigarettes?
My mom used to throw them out the window right before we got like a block away from church because she didn't want anybody to see her smoking in the car. But my dad,
meanwhile, walks in smelling like a pack of cigarettes.
Literally, but my dad would decide that we couldn't eat at restaurants when they got rid of the smoking section.
My mom used to light up like after she was done eating, even though we were all still eating, and give it a.
She was done. Okay.
Hold it back here, right?
Todd.
Yeah, you used to be able to smoke on airplanes.
Hold it like back here, so the smoke wouldn't hit us.
Yeah, because you guys were in a closed room with closed windows. That was extra considerate of her.
I know, it really was.